So, I never thought I'd be the type of guy to come on Reddit and pour my guts out like this, but here I am. Maybe it'll help someone else. Maybe it'll just help me make sense of things. Either way, buckle up, because my life lately has been one hell of a ride, and Thomas Edison, yeah, the famous inventor, somehow got tangled up in my mess in ways I never expected. It started with a letter. Not the kind you want to find tucked in a drawer when you're cleaning up the house. My wife had left it there, half hidden under a stack of old papers, and curiosity got the best of me. Inside, it wasn't some romantic note or a list of chores. It was a letter she'd written to him. No, not Edison himself. Obviously, the guy's been dead for ages. But to some dude she'd been calling her Edison. I can't explain the pit in my stomach when I read it. She wasn't just writing about another man. She was writing about how he lit up her world and gave her hope in the darkness. That was supposed to be me. I was the one who had been grinding day in and day out, working, paying bills, being the dependable husband. Suddenly, I realized I wasn't the light in her life at all. It was ironic, really. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, and here I was, standing in the dark, realizing my wife had replaced me with her own version of him. The shock hit me first. I couldn't even process it. My hands were shaking as I held the letter. Then came the anger, boiling, ugly anger. I felt like my chest might split open. I wanted to storm into the room and scream at her, demand answers right then and there. But instead, I just stood there staring at those words. My brain was already making connections to Edison's life, the betrayals, the struggles, the reinventions. And I thought, maybe this is going to be my version of that story. My wife had just pulled the plug on everything I thought was safe, and now I had to figure out what kind of man I was going to be in the dark. That was the beginning. I swear my heart was pounding so loud. I thought she'd hear it before I even said a word. I held on to that letter like it was Exhibit A in some trial, because that's what it felt like, me against her, and the jury was my own sanity. She was in the kitchen making coffee, humming like everything was perfectly normal. And I just blurted it out. Who the hell is Edison? Her face froze. You know that look someone gives you when they realize they've been caught? That half-second delay before the lie starts forming? That was it. She tried to laugh it off at first, said it was just a nickname for some inspirational figure she admired. But come on, nobody writes love-drenched letters to some abstract idea. I slammed the paper down on the table. Don't play games with me. You're writing to another man. That's when her mask cracked. The humming, the calmness, it all vanished. She snapped back at me, saying I was snooping and overreacting. Overreacting? Reading a love letter from your wife to another man is supposed to be normal now? I could feel my anger climbing, but beneath it was something heavier, sadness, almost grief. Like the ground had just opened up beneath my feet, and I was falling into something I couldn't climb out of. She finally admitted it. She said Edison wasn't his real name, just what she called him because he inspired her ideas and dreams. She said he understood her in a way I never did. That part stung the most. I've worked my ass off to give her a good life, and now I was being compared to some guy she met God knows where, who sends her poetic little sparks of inspiration. It spiraled quickly. We went from raised voices to full-blown shouting. She accused me of being emotionally absent, always focused on work, never noticing her loneliness. I accused her of betrayal, of dragging some dead inventor's name into our marriage like it was a joke. By the end of it, she was crying, I was shaking, and the coffee had gone cold. I didn't even know what to do with myself. Walk out. Scream more? Tear the letter into 1,000 pieces? Instead, I just sat there in silence, staring at that stupid word, Edison, and wondering how the hell I got here. That night was brutal. I lay in bed next to her, both of us pretending to sleep, but the air was thick with tension. Every time she shifted under the blanket, I flinched, like I was lying next to a stranger. I couldn't even look at her. My mind just kept replaying that line from her letter. You light up my world. Funny thing is, I actually picked up my phone and started Googling Thomas Edison in the middle of the night. Don't ask me why. Maybe I was looking for some kind of cosmic connection, or maybe I just wanted to understand why she chose him as her metaphor. What I found shocked me. Edison wasn't just some flawless genius who invented the light bulb. The guy had a dark side. He stole ideas, betrayed partners, and worked his rivals into the ground. He was celebrated, sure, but he also left a trail of broken people behind him. It hit me like a gut punch. Was that the kind of man she wanted? A guy who could inspire but also destroy? Suddenly, the nickname didn't feel so innocent. It felt calculated. She had put this other man on a pedestal, calling him her Edison, like she wanted someone ruthless, someone who made her feel alive even if it burned everything else down. Meanwhile, there I was, steady, boring, dependable me. The guy who pays the bills, who comes home exhausted, who doesn't write love letters, but makes sure there's gas in the car and food in the fridge. I didn't sleep at all. My head kept bouncing between rage and heartbreak. One minute, I wanted to wake her up and tell her to pack her stuff. The next, I thought maybe I could fight for her. Maybe I could reinvent myself like Edison reinvented his failures. By sunrise, I felt like a hollow shell. And the worst part? She slept like a baby. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just a bump in the road. My marriage had changed forever. When the sun came up, I wasn't myself. I was still that hollowed-out version of me, running on zero sleep and way too much bitterness. But I had this weird idea in my head. If she really meant all that stuff she wrote to Edison, then I'd catch her slipping somehow. So I decided to test her. I made breakfast, eggs, toast, the usual. But this time, I added something different, conversation. Not the how was your sleep small talk. I went deep. I asked her about her dreams, her passions, what she thought about the future. Stuff I realized I hadn't asked in a long time. You know what happened? Her eyes lit up. Not at me, but at the idea of being asked. She started talking about writing again, about how she'd been journaling, about how this friend, yeah, the infamous Edison, encouraged her to think big. She smiled in a way I hadn't seen in months, maybe years, and I felt this twist in my gut. It was like I was watching a preview of the life she wanted, and I wasn't in the frame. I was just the guy holding the camera. So I pushed further. I asked, "Do you feel like I've held you back?" She hesitated. That hesitation was louder than any answer. Then she whispered, "Sometimes." That crushed me. I wanted her to laugh and say no, to reassure me that all of this was just a stupid mistake. But instead, she admitted it, straight up. My whole identity as her partner, the guy who thought he was building a life with her, suddenly felt like dead weight dragging her down. The irony wasn't lost on me. Edison failed thousands of times before the light bulb worked, and here I was, feeling like failure number 999 in her story. I didn't even eat the breakfast I made. I just stared at my plate, appetite gone, and realized that my little test hadn't exposed her lies. It had exposed the truth. And honestly, that was worse. By the third day, I couldn't take the silence anymore. We weren't really talking, not about the real thing. She'd float around the house like nothing was wrong, humming, scrolling on her phone, smiling at texts she wouldn't let me see. And me? I was pacing like a caged animal, my chest tight, my thoughts looping. That morning, I cracked. I told her flat out, "You have to choose. It's him or me." She froze. I'd expected her to get defensive, maybe to lash out, but instead, she just stared, like she was trying to picture a life without either of us, weighing which loss would hurt less. That pause cut deeper than anything else she'd done. Finally, she said, "You don't understand. He doesn't want me the way you think. He just believes in me." I laughed. I couldn't help it. It came out sharp, bitter, almost cruel. "Believes in you? You're writing him love letters." That's not belief, that's betrayal. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't deny it. She just said, "You've never believed in me like that. You've only believed in what we needed, not who I am." It felt like being punched in the stomach. I'd spent years killing myself to provide, to keep our life together, and now I was being told that wasn't enough. That all my sacrifices made me dependable, sure, but not inspiring. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw Edison's name in her face again, tell her she was idolizing a thief who stole other people's ideas. But instead, I just deflated. I sat down on the couch, head in my hands, and for the first time, I said the words I'd been avoiding. "Then maybe I'm not the husband you want." The room went dead quiet. I half expected her to grab my hand, to tell me I was wrong, that she still loved me, that this was just a phase. But she didn't. She just stood there, silent, and in that silence, I got my answer. That was the breaking point. Not the letter, not the shouting, not the sleepless night. It was the moment I realized she wasn't going to fight for me. And that meant I had to decide whether I was still going to fight for her. That night, I sat in my car for almost 2 hours without even turning the engine on. Just me, the dark, and the sound of my own breathing. I couldn't stay in the house. Every corner felt poisoned, like her laughter, her humming. Even her perfume on the couch cushions was mocking me. I thought about packing a bag and leaving, just vanishing. But then this stubborn part of me, the part that had always pushed through, always worked late, always figured it out, kicked in. Maybe it was pride, maybe stupidity, maybe survival. I don't know, but I decided I wasn't going to walk away in silence. Instead, I made a choice. I was going to rebuild myself. Not for her, not to win her back, but because I realized how much of me had been buried under the grind of being a husband who just provides. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being a man with dreams. That's when Edison's story started circling in my head again. The guy failed thousands of times before he made the light bulb work. He got laughed at, doubted, even betrayed, but he kept inventing. He didn't quit just because people didn't believe in him. So I asked myself, why was I ready to quit on me just because she didn't? I made the decision right there in that silent car. I wasn't going to beg for her love. I wasn't going to compete with Edison, real or fake. I was going to pour my energy into my own ideas, my own work, my own future. If she wanted inspiration, fine. I'd be my own damn Edison. By the time I walked back inside, something had shifted in me. She noticed. She asked, "Where were you?" in that cautious voice people use when they know they've crossed a line. I just looked at her and said, "Out," thinking about what comes next. And for the first time in days, I didn't feel powerless. The next morning, I was up before the alarm. No dragging myself out of bed, no staring at the ceiling. I brewed coffee, showered, dressed sharp, and sat down at my desk like a man on a mission. It felt strange, almost like I was meeting a part of myself I hadn't seen in years. I opened up old notebooks, dusted off half-baked ideas I'd shelved because life got in the way, and started sketching them out again. For the first time in forever, I wasn't thinking about bills or fixing the leaky sink. I was thinking about me. And here's the kicker. She noticed. She walked past the doorway and stopped, watching me scribble notes like a mad scientist. "What are you doing?" she asked, almost suspicious. I didn't even look up. "Working. On something I should have started years ago." She stood there for a beat, then said, "You seem different." I don't know if she meant it as a compliment or an accusation, but it gave me this weird surge of energy. For so long, I'd been the predictable husband. Same routines, same responsibilities, same quiet exhaustion. Now, for once, I wasn't orbiting around her. I was creating my own gravity. By lunch, I had 3 pages of ideas mapped out. Nothing polished, nothing ready for the world, but enough to make me feel alive again. And I couldn't help but think about Edison tinkering in his lab, failing over and over, yet never stopping. Maybe I was failing as a husband right now, maybe even as a man, but I wasn't going to fail myself anymore. Later that night, she asked if I wanted to watch something together, like we used to. And here's where it got awkward. I said no. I told her I had more work to do. The look on her face was unexpected. Not angry, not sad, almost scared. Like she realized she wasn't the only one with a secret life anymore. And for the first time since finding that letter, I wasn't the one begging for scraps of attention. It was subtle at first, almost too quiet to notice. A question here, a glance there. But after a few days of me throwing myself into work and acting like I had my own world spinning, her attitude shifted. She started hovering, not in a nagging way, more like she was trying to figure out what I was up to. She'd peek into the room when I was writing, linger in the doorway longer than usual. Once, she even asked, "So, what are you working on exactly?" I shrugged. "Just ideas. Nothing you'd care about." The words were sharp, and I meant them to be. I wanted her to feel that distance I'd been drowning in. But here's the unexpected part. She didn't snap back. She didn't roll her eyes. Instead, she looked worried. That threw me off. Because up until then, I was the desperate one, begging for scraps of her honesty, attention, love. But now, she was the one leaning in, sensing me slip out of her orbit. It was like the roles reversed overnight. And I can't lie, it felt good. Not because I wanted revenge, okay, maybe a little, but because I finally realized I had power. I wasn't just the boring, dependable husband anymore. I was building something, reclaiming something, and she could feel it. That night, while we were brushing our teeth, she blurted out, "I don't want to lose you." I froze with the toothbrush in my mouth. This was the same woman who, days earlier, admitted she felt held back by me. Now she was scared of me slipping away? I rinsed, looked at her in the mirror, and said, "Then why write to him like I never mattered?" Her eyes dropped. No answer, just silence. And in that silence, I felt something shift inside me again. I wasn't chasing anymore. She was. But the truth? It didn't erase the betrayal. It didn't erase that damn letter burned into my brain. I went to bed that night knowing one thing. Even if she was scared to lose me now, I wasn't sure I wanted to be found. So here's where the story takes a turn I wasn't ready for. Up until then, I thought Edison was just some emotional affair. Letters, words, maybe a little flirting. Painful, yeah, but survivable. I could deal with her craving inspiration. But then, I stumbled on the proof that it wasn't just emotional. I was going through our shared laptop, looking for an old file for work, when her email popped open. I swear I wasn't snooping, at least not at first. But when the subject line, "Can't stop thinking about last time," jumped out at me, my gut told me I had to click. And there it was. Messages between her and him. Not Edison the symbol. Edison the man. He had a name, a face, an address. And the way they wrote. It wasn't just admiration, it was physical. They'd met. More than once. I sat there staring at the screen, the words blurring. "You light me up, the way you touched me. When's the next time we can escape?" Each sentence was another stab in the chest. I felt sick. Betrayed doesn't even cover it. It was like the ground gave way beneath me, and I fell straight through the floor. All those nights, she said she was writing, journaling, or staying late at a friend's. She'd been with him. My wife. The woman I thought I knew better than anyone. The worst part? She had used Edison as a cover story. She dressed the whole thing up in metaphors, in inspiration, in this fake aura of creativity, when in reality, it was just the oldest story in the book. She found someone else. I slammed the laptop shut so hard the screen flickered. My hands were shaking, my face burning. For a split second, I thought about confronting her right then and there, blowing up the whole house with the truth. But something inside me stopped. Instead, I just sat in the dark, laptop closed, my head pounding. Because now the question wasn't if she betrayed me. It was what the hell was I going to do about it? I couldn't sit on it for long. The messages were still echoing in my head the next morning. Her words, his words, all of it. I felt like I was walking around with acid in my veins. Every time she smiled, every time she asked me something casual, I wanted to scream. So I didn't wait. After dinner that night, I pulled out the laptop, opened her emails, and spun it around so she could see. I didn't say a word. Just let the screen speak for itself. Her face drained of color instantly. She didn't even try to deny it this time. "No, you're overreacting." No excuses about inspiration. She just sat there, staring at her own words like they belonged to someone else. Finally, she whispered, "I didn't want you to find out like this." That line nearly broke me. Didn't want me to find out? Like the problem was the discovery, not the betrayal. I snapped. "You've been sneaking around, writing love letters, meeting him, sleeping with him. And the thing you're sorry for is that I found out." She burst into tears, the ugly, shaking kind. She kept saying she was confused, that she never meant to hurt me, that she still loved me but felt alive with him in a way she hadn't in years. And there it was, the knife twisted even deeper. She admitted she loved both of us in different ways. Me for stability, him for excitement. Do you know what that feels like? To be told you're good enough for the mortgage, the groceries, the daily grind, but not good enough for passion? It's like being valued and discarded in the same breath. I yelled. She cried. At one point, she even grabbed my hands and begged, "Please, don't leave me. I can't lose you." And I'll be honest, I almost caved. After all the years together, after everything we built, part of me wanted to believe we could patch it. But then I remembered his words, glowing on that screen. Last time was unforgettable. That wasn't something you come back from. I pulled my hands away, stood up, and said the only thing I could. "You already lost me." The house felt empty. even though she was still there. We were both moving around like ghosts, avoiding each other, pretending to do normal things. Cooking, cleaning, sitting on the couch. But every glance, every half-smile was loaded with tension. I stayed in my office more than I had in years. I needed space to think, to breathe, to figure out what the hell I was going to do with the wreckage of my life. Every object in the house reminded me of her and him, and I realized I couldn't stay in that environment without losing myself completely. That night, I made a decision that surprised even me. I packed a small bag, just clothes, my laptop, and a few essentials, and left. Not to go somewhere fancy or dramatic, just to a cheap motel a few miles away. I needed distance. I needed perspective. From that little room, I started journaling. Not letters to another man, not apologies, not explanations. Just my thoughts, my anger, my grief, my confusion. I wrote about her, yes, but I also wrote about myself, about what I wanted, who I wanted to be. And slowly, amid the heartbreak, I felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. I realized I couldn't fix her, and I couldn't save the marriage the way it had been. I could only save myself, and that was going to be enough. The next morning, I didn't go back. I called in sick to work, made a list of things I'd neglected in my personal life, and started plotting a new direction, one that didn't involve her or anyone like her. It hurt. It hurt like hell. But I also felt lighter, like I was peeling off years of weight I didn't even know I'd been carrying. Sitting in that motel room, I started thinking about Edison again. Funny how his story kept showing up at every dark turn of my life. He failed thousands of times before he succeeded. People laughed at him, doubted him, even betrayed him. And yet, he kept going. He didn't let setbacks define him. He used them. I realized I could do the same. My marriage had crumbled. My trust had been shattered. But that didn't mean my life was over. It just meant I had a choice: stay broken or start building something new. I dusted off old projects I'd abandoned. Writing, a little tech idea I'd tinkered with for years, even some freelance work I'd always been too scared to pitch. I wasn't just working to fill time. I was working to reclaim my identity. And something unexpected happened. I started feeling alive again. Not because of her, not because of revenge, not because I wanted to prove anything to Edison, but because I was finally putting myself first. I was the one inventing my future now. Even small victories felt huge. I finished a draft I'd been avoiding for months. I solved a technical problem that had stumped me for weeks. I laughed at a stupid joke on a podcast without feeling guilty. I started to see that betrayal, as painful as it was, had given me a strange kind of freedom. I was no longer chained to expectations, to someone else's whims, to a role that had drained me. I was free to fail, to experiment, to shine. And just like Edison, I knew there would be more failures ahead. But failures weren't the end anymore. They were just part of the process. A week later, she showed up at the motel. I didn't answer the door at first. I wasn't sure what I wanted: anger? Closure? Maybe just to watch her squirm. Eventually, curiosity, or maybe old habit, got the better of me, and I let her in. She looked different, contrite, desperate, trying to apologize. She said things like, "I made a mistake, and I never stopped loving you. And even, I want to try again." Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to scream in her face and tell her she didn't deserve the man I was becoming. I realized she was scared now. Scared that I'd realized my worth. Scared that I'd leave for good. But here's the twist. I didn't react the way I thought I would. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I listened. Really listened. And in listening, I realized something crucial. She was asking for me back, but I wasn't the same man she had betrayed. I told her honestly, "I'm not the guy you left behind. I'm someone who's learning to value himself first. I can't go back to what we had, because that's the part of me you didn't respect." Her face fell. I think she understood that, finally. Maybe not fully, but enough. I could feel the power shift. I wasn't chasing her anymore. I wasn't her backup, her security blanket, or her safe choice. I was my own man, and she had lost that version of me forever. That night, she left without arguing. The door closed softly, but the echo of it felt like a release. For the first time in years, I didn't feel trapped. I felt alive. The weeks that followed were quiet, but not empty. I kept working, kept pushing myself to build something meaningful, and slowly, the the raw ache of betrayal started to dull. I still thought about her, about Edison, about all the ways things could have gone differently, but those thoughts no longer controlled me. I realized that heartbreak has a strange power. It can break you down, yes, but it can also teach you who you really are. I learned that I was stronger than I thought, more resilient, more capable of love, for myself first, than I ever imagined. I started journaling regularly, documenting not just my work, but my feelings, my discoveries, my failures, and small victories. It became a roadmap for rebuilding my life, a testament to the fact that even after someone betrays you, you can still choose to rise. And Edison's story stayed with me. The failures, the persistence, the reinvention, it all became a metaphor for my own life. I wasn't just surviving the aftermath of betrayal. I was inventing myself anew, one careful, determined step at a time. For the first time, I felt proud. Not because someone loved me, or because I won someone back, but because I had learned to value the person I was becoming. Looking back, I realize now that betrayal, heartbreak, and loss aren't the end, they're catalysts. They force you to confront your worth, your limits, and your desires in a way nothing else can. Losing her, discovering the truth about Edison, and facing the emptiness of that life showed me who I really was, and who I wanted to be. Here's what I learned, plain and simple. Value yourself first. You can't rely on someone else to validate your worth. If they betray you, it's not a reflection of your failure. It's a reflection of their choices. Channel pain into action. I could have sunk into despair, but I chose to work, create, and rebuild. That energy transformed the heartbreak into momentum. Failures are part of the process. Like Edison, you'll stumble, be underestimated, or hurt along the way. That doesn't mean you stop. It means you learn and adapt. Don't settle for half a life. If someone only values part of you, your stability, your attention, your money, then they're not valuing the whole person. And you deserve to be whole in someone's eyes. I'm not perfect, and I don't have everything figured out. But I am here, alive, creating, building, and finally believing in myself. And if you're reading this, stuck in betrayal, heartbreak, or doubt, know this. You can survive. You can rise. You can invent your life anew, just like Edison did, with persistence, patience, and belief in yourself. Sometimes, the darkness isn't the end. It's just the beginning of your brightest invention yet. Looking back, I realize now that betrayal, heartbreak, and loss aren't the end, they're catalysts. They force you to confront your worth, your limits, and your desires in a way nothing else can. Losing her, discovering the truth about Edison, and facing the emptiness of that life showed me who I really was, and who I wanted to be. Here's what I learned, plain and simple. Value yourself first. You can't rely on someone else to validate your worth. If they betray you, it's not a reflection of your failure. It's a reflection of their choices. Channel pain into action. I could have sunk into despair, but I chose to work, create, and rebuild. That energy transformed the heartbreak into momentum. Failures are part of the process. Like Edison, you'll stumble, be underestimated, or hurt along the way. That doesn't mean you stop. It means you learn and adapt. Don't settle for half a life. If someone only values part of you, your stability, your attention, your money, then they're not valuing the whole person. And you deserve to be whole in someone's eyes. I'm not perfect, and I don't have everything figured out. But I am here, alive, creating, building, and finally believing in myself. And if you're reading this, stuck in betrayal, heartbreak, or doubt, know this. You can survive. You can rise. You can invent your life anew, just like Edison did, with persistence, patience, and belief in yourself. Sometimes, the darkness isn't the end. It's just the beginning of your brightest invention yet. If you want, I can also help you adapt this whole story into a more polished, learn English with inspiring stories format for listening practice, keeping the Reddit style, but making it easier to follow for learners. Do you want me to do that?